Hello and welcome to another episode of Chasing Excellence. My name is Patrick Cummings, and as always, I am here with Ben Bergeron. Every week on the show, we dedicate some time to exploring how we can live a life of better health and increased fulfillment. We answer your questions about the 5 factors of health, dive deep on living a life of excellence, and explore the strategies and frameworks to help us chase what truly matters. Thank you, as always, for tuning in to the show. How the heck are you, Ben?
Very good, Patrick.
We are going to have a conversation today. We've got listener questions about ideal ranges of body fat for folks who want to kick ass into their 90s, the effectiveness of CBD oil, and dealing with negativity at work. Our workout today is going to be a complete mystery to me because all you did was tell me that Bodhi said we should have a conversation on the podcast. Bodhi's your son. And so I was like, cool, let's do that. So that's what we're going to do today. So I'm excited about that. And then we're going to wrap things up with a new 30-day challenge. Ready for the warm-up?
Let's do it. Yep.
Warm-up is when is how we start each episode. We do that with your questions about the 5 factors of health, those few fundamental behaviors that most positively affect our performance, vitality, and longevity. Those 5 factors are how we eat, how we move, how we think, connect, and recover. First question we've got is from Kendall. It is in the move factor. I'm training for longevity and the occasional Spartan race. Mostly I train to continuously grow, challenge myself, and shift my perspective. I follow the CompTrain open programming because I find CompTrain to be so above and beyond in terms of its programming strategy and mindset components. Shout out to CompTrain. I'm looking for some guidance as far as how to follow the programming for longevity versus competition. And I'm specifically thinking about everything you all have discussed regarding conditioning-based programming. Is it better for me to do 3 of the prescribed components a day, strength, accessory, and workout? Or is it better to break down the movements in the workout and work on them before the workout? So it feels like it's
very
about,
specific.
Yeah, like a time management to a degree, I think. But
okay. All right. So first, very cool that you're, what's your name?
Kendall.
Kendall. That Kendall follows CompTrain. For those that don't know what that is, that's it's an app that prescribes daily training and mindset. It's geared towards elite athletes. It's geared towards the real hard charges and people that are trying to push the capacities of what we can do physically and mentally. So in order to do that for longevity, which is awesome that Kendall is doing that, it's not what the program is intended for, but for sure, you could skew this thing, you could tweak it a little bit. And the way that I would suggest doing that is not far off from what she's already doing. I would follow the open programming. And then the small changes I would make is, it's a little bit simpler than what she's saying. It's the biggest thing I would do is ensure that you're not taking 8 steps backwards. Mm-hmm. So this is a different, people that are chasing elite levels of fitness, their trajectory is fairly short because they need to optimize today for next week and next month. We're trying to get as much out of their training so that they can peak this year. That's what a competitor is, somebody that wants to compete. So if we're training for longevity, that gets stretched massively. And it's basically the number one requirement there is do no harm. Because we want no steps back whatsoever. So the way I would kind of conceptualize that is the first thing I would do is make sure you're appropriately scaling loads and movements. Any movement that you feel might be a little twingy on a shoulder or lower back, just sub it out for something that's a little bit more, lack of a better word, but mundane, not as challenging. And then obviously bring down the loads to something that you can continually move with really, really good form and technique. That'd be the first thing. Second one, getting a little more specific, is she said, should I change out the movements or do the 3 pieces? Is that right?
Is it better for me to do 3 of the prescribed components a day, strength, accessory, and workout?
Okay, that's it. So that is the answer. Yes, it is. It is better for you to do those. The strength, accessory, and the Metcon, follow it as is, but with those first principles in place.
Got it. Cool. Next question is from Allison. This is in our Think Factor. I'm not very quote unquote woo-woo or spiritual when teaching in the CrossFit space, but I feel my athletes could benefit from my teaching some of the ideals of yoga or ideas of yoga in a spiritual sense. How do you think CrossFitters would respond to and correct these pronunciations? That's ironic.
Yeah.
If I'm getting them wrong. The yamas and the niyamas, Niyamas, or even the 8 limbs of yoga. So if you know what those are, and I'm pronouncing them incorrectly,
I would correct you if I knew what the heck those things were, but I don't know what the heck those things are.
Okay, cool.
So, so some keyword, but to answer.
Yeah.
So woo-woo, spiritual, yoga. So first off, yoga, the word yoga means union. It doesn't mean stretching in a flow, trying to get sweat on and stuff like that. That's what it's been popularized as in the West. So it's a little, I don't know what she's talking about there because I actually don't know what those are. It sounds like she's a little bit more towards the union side because it's the yin side and the 8 limbs. And I'm a massive, huge proponent of that side without going woo-woo. I don't think you need to be out there. I don't think you need to go as far as Zen Ben, but you could say a little bit more, speak the language of normal CrossFitters, which is you guys bust your ass and work out with massively high levels of intensity. Anything that swings that far to one side of the pendulum necessitates swinging back the other side. It is just the nature of nature. So the opposite of that speed, that power, that intensity is chill and relax. Slow it down. And that's why I've really fallen in love with Yin Yoga. I think it's a perfect complement to CrossFit, where there is lots of different variations of Hatha and Hot and power yoga and holding Warrior 2 for 97 minutes until your arms feel like we don't need the additional muscular endurance. What we need is slow, chill, and stretch. And that's what Yin is. Yin is normally holding poses and postures. I should say it's holding stretches, which is why I like it. It's not tree pose for as long as you can, just balance. It's not Warrior 2 and how long can you hold before your arms feel like they're going to fall off. It's holding a stretch for 2 to 5 minutes, and then you move on to the next one and the next one. There can be some sun salutations to warm the body up and some movement incorporated, but it's a very relaxed, and I love that aspect of it for the yin and the yang of CrossFit, but I also do love the philosophy of yoga in terms of the traditional sense of union, which is this whole thing is a whole. We as humans, with our brains, want to use our intellect to dissect everything and segment everything and good and bad and right and wrong and doorway wall. You walk through the door, not through the wall. But because we do that, we lose the perception that this is a unified universe. Like we are not a singular being, Patrick Cummings. You are a part of humanity, which is a part of this planet, which is a part of this galaxy, which is a part of this universe, and so on. This whole thing is intertwined, and I love that aspect of yoga. And I think that we could all use a level of that because it brings levels of perception that bring calm and centeredness. If you have calm and centeredness, you're a more formidable, potent human being.
Thank you. Next question is in the eat category. Is there an ideal range for body fat percentage for folks who want to kick ass into their 90s?
Yep, but it's a range. Do they say range or do they say ideal?
Yes, is there an ideal range?
Yep.
So they gave you that.
Absolutely. And it's just healthy. It's healthy. So one of the number one correlates to chronic disease is being overweight. So whether you call it body fat, BMI, or whatever you want to call it, if you are overweight, you are not going to be kicking ass in your 90s. So we need to mitigate your body weight, and even more so. So as you dial this thing down, more so than body weight, it's BMI, and more than BMI, it's body comp, body fat. So what are those ideal ranges? If you're in your below 30, we want guys to be hovering around 10%, 12, 13%, totally fine. It's when you get into the higher teens that some issues arise, and certainly in your 20% and above, you're probably becoming predisposed to some challenges that you don't want to have as a part of your life. For females, it's very, very similar, but you just add 5%. So it's going to be 15 to 20% for females under 30. And as you get above 25%, and certainly 30%, you're going to have those things. And then essentially for every decade you get older, so if you're in your 40s, you could add just a couple percentage points to that. So if you're in your 40s, that could be 12 to 17% for males, and it could be 17 to 22% for females, and so on.
Got it. Recovery question. What are your thoughts on CBD oil? Does it help or does it work? And if so, what's the best way to use it overall?
Yeah. I'll ask me that question in a year or two, because I actually don't know the answer just yet. Yep. To me, it's all anecdotal right now. And some people are like, oh my God, you got to try this stuff. It's absolutely amazing. Which cool. That works. I just haven't experienced enough personally or with my athletes and clients to have a well enough informed opinion just yet to share what my take on it is.
What are the biggest ways people are using CBD? The only one I know is like there's a bit of a sleep aid to it, but is it?
Well, if you ask me the way I used it in college, I would pack it into a bong and rip them, before philosophy class on Tuesday mornings at 10:30.
Okay. I'm not asking that though.
Oh, I think that the most of it is being used as a cream.
Okay. So like soreness.
Yeah.
Type of thing. Got it. Okay, cool. Last question we've got for our warm-up. We're on fast today in our Connect bucket. How do you deal with negativity around you? I know you own your own business. You own your own business and you control who you hire and fire, so you can create a positive environment. But if you worked for someone else and couldn't control personnel, how would you deal with those with a negative attitude? Is there a gentle way to call them out? I want to help others look at things more positively and rationally, but I'm not sure if maybe it's just not my place. I'm referring mainly to workmates that I have a limited but not necessarily deep relationship with.
Yeah, that's. I would say when I talk about reframing people, trying to become more positive, turn them into realists, and the warrior mindset. This is one of the more challenging environments. You can do it with your friends because you can have those hard conversations. You need to do it with your family. Mm-hmm. But the work, especially when you're not the leader, super challenging. And I would suggest, and I haven't done this.
Yeah.
That's why I have to do it. I have to do it as kind of like
conceptually.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In theory, how would I do it?
Yeah.
And I would do it first and foremost by leading by example. Mm-hmm. If you are the average of the 5, you be the outlier. You be the highest person on that side. So, that's where I would go for that, and not in an obnoxious way, but just make sure you yourself are not whining, complaining, or making excuses. Then from there, I would very softly and subtly help people, again, softly and subtly become aware of when it is happening. And it wouldn't be every time. I would just choose the battles when they're appropriate to call them out in the moments. And one of the ones that we've used in the, as examples is help people turn have tos into get tos, reframe things as obstacles into opportunities, turn shoulds into wills. So help work with people's language. You're not going to change their mindset. You're going to change their personality, but you might be able to help them become aware of some of the words that might not be helping them. And again, subtly and softly, if you come in too heavy, you're going to look like the work jerk that nobody wants to be around.
Zen Ben, work jerk. I'm liking this today. Yeah. You mentioned in the moment doing it. Is there also a case to be made for let's remove ourselves from the situation and have a conversation about it in retrospect? Or do you feel like that in the moment?
Yeah, you could do that, but it'd have to be, you'd have to have a resume of the incidences. Because you can't go, hey, remember in last Tuesday's meeting when you ... It's a lot easier to do it. I don't mean like as they're doing it, but after Tuesday's meeting.
Got it. Yeah.
After Tuesday's
meeting. So it's close to the moment.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
So
otherwise, it seems like, well, what the hell? You've been holding on to this for that long. Have you been also talking to the other people here about this?
That's a good point. I love that. Okay, cool. If you folks out there want to get a question in the queue, find me on Instagram, send me a DM, PS Cummings. I will get it into our queue and I will get it into a future episode. We'll get back to the show in just a minute. But first, a quick word of thanks to our sponsor this week, Element. Element, spelled LMNT, is a tasty electrolyte drink with everything you need and nothing you do not. It was started by Rob Wolf, who's been on the show before and who's been around the block a time or two. Element contains a science-backed electrolyte ratio of 1,000 milligrams sodium, 200 milligrams potassium, and 60 milligrams magnesium. No sugar, no coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, no malarkey. No kidding. Why the heck do you want to start thinking about adding Element to your daily habit stack? Because it can facilitate hundreds of functions inside the body, from hormonal regulation to nutrient absorption to fluid balance. Because it can help reduce headaches, lessen muscle cramps, and fight fatigue. And because, quite frankly, it is downright tasty. Element is enjoyed by pro athletes, Navy SEALs, and hard chargers of all types. Right now, you can get yourself a free sample pack with any purchase. That's 8 single-serving packets free with any Element order. A great way to taste all 8 flavors before you stock your house with all the salty goodness you could want. Just head to drinkelement.com/excellence to get the deal. Again, that's DRINKLMNT.com/excellence. Let us dive into this mystery workout that we have. Last time we were together, you gave me a very quick rundown of like, I was having a conversation with Heather, and in the backseat, Bodhi chimed in and said, you should talk about that on your podcast. Which cool that Bodhi knows you have a podcast.
He listens to it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. But give us enough context to know what the heck we're talking about. And I'm super curious why you think Bodhi.
We were driving. Yes, we were driving back from my mom's house on the Cape. We had gone to visit her around the holidays, and we were driving back. And I can't remember what spurred it, but I think we were talking about somebody in our lives that was going through a really challenging and trying time. And I, not knowing that because Bodhi was on his podcast, Bodhi was on his iPad, me thinking he's not paying attention. But after I got done explaining my perspective on it, my philosophy on challenges, Bodhi is kind of positive. He's like, just said, you should talk about that on your podcast. So that's where we are.
I love that. Shout out to Bodhi.
Harley was also in the car, but she did not say that. And for those that don't, Bodhi is my 10-year-old. Harley's my 8-year-old. Okay, so it's basically a philosophy on what the heck we are all doing here on planet Earth. Mm-hmm. So not everyone. There is a certain religions, and there are a lot of people that believe the objective of this life is to live a good life so we can go to heaven or whatever it might be and experience blissfulness for eternity. And a lot of this is shaped by, I feel like I should get credit now, from Michael Singer's stuff. Mm-hmm. Where, what if it was the opposite? What if
this was heaven?
What if this was heaven?
Interesting.
And it might be heaven because if we are all truly just eternal souls floating around the universe and or beings in heaven. Well, if you're in heaven, you get everything you want. So if you have everything that you want, where's the excitement? Where's the emotion? Where's the living? Mm-hmm. Where's the feeling? It's void. It's not there. You're just a soul. Same thing if you're just a soul floating around the universe. There's no emotion. And that might be what being human is all about, is the opportunity to experience emotions. Mm. So souls float around the universe, and the lucky ones get to come down here and experience 2 seconds to, a second to 100 years on planet Earth. And the reason I like this framework, this perspective, is it's the only way I've found to give meaning, purpose, and justification to suffering. Mm. Because with this mentality, for sure, you come down and you have joy and pleasure and blissfulness and excitement. That's cool to have. A soul would want to have that. But it's almost like the ones that come down here and have the most fear, the most heartache, the most trauma, actually got to experience this human thing the most. Mm-hmm. And then they get to go back throughout the roaming the universe or heaven and go, that was crazy. That was like, whoa, I got to have the most intense experiences down there. And I really like that. And I'm not right? This isn't right. I'm not trying to start a new religion.
It's called Benzen.
But I like this because my philosophy has always been to live life. Mm-hmm. Secondarily, have experiences. And then thirdly, obstacles are opportunities. Mm-hmm. And this, I've never been able to justify beyond obstacles to true tragedy. Mm-hmm. And the biggest tragedy to me that or the biggest thing I have a hardest time explaining why, like, what is the benefit? What is the upside of having a really, really young child, mm-hmm. Under 1, certainly under 2, 3 years old, die? Like what? Like they didn't get a chance to do, and well, if you bring it through this perspective, like the people around that child are going to have so much pain and heartache, but that's such a big part of what it means to be human. Those people get to have that experience. They get to feel that way. The Holocaust, those souls that came down here and had that went through that horrific thing that I have a hard time justifying through any other prism I've ever heard from, any other religion, philosophy, or, well, walking through the death camps hand in hand with your 7-year-old daughter and your wife and having them ripped away from you to go to the gas chambers. I can't imagine anything more tragic or horrific. But if the reason we are here is to simply have those crazy experiences, well, that gives meaning to those experiences, because you got to experience humanity at its highest, at its biggest. You had the most heartache. And that gives me a lot of faith in terms of why these things might be a part of our existence. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's the flipping it around and thinking about, instead of our existence, our temporary time here as being the sort of tryout for some greater,
it's the opposite, right?
Eternal. This is the reward.
Exactly. You're floating around the universe for all of eternity with, what if, we talked about the 12-hour walk that we did and I passed out. Yep. Well, when I passed out, I lost consciousness, but I was conscious. Mm-hmm. I was like, I was a consciousness. And this was a really weird thing for me because I wasn't gone. I was in this place and I basically felt like I was just in this other realm. I didn't leave. It was very, very peaceful. And I almost feel like that, it's kind of like when you're sleeping, right? And you're asleep and you're just having a very nice, peaceful sleep, but you're not you sort of know you're asleep. What if that was eternity and you came here just for this brief moment, these few decades, to have this really powerful experience full of
the whole gamut.
Right. Like the in the spiritual world, they call it Maya, which is basically which is ironic that I have a daughter named Maya as well, but it's, the illusion of humanity and the suffering that we all experience, like the questioning all the time. Well, that's the cool part, coming here and be like, I don't know, like all of the uncertainty and all of the fear of death, living with that would be so cool for some spirit that doesn't get that at all. That would be amazing. Like the fear of death is the most amazing, cool thing that you could possibly have. Like, because it's the urgency to live your life right now. A spirit in heaven that lives for all of eternity doesn't get that. Mm-hmm. Like, so now you get to feel what this thing is like. Oh my God, I got to do these things. Like I'm so afraid that I'm not going to live a life of purpose, that I will outlive my kids and I'm going to experience their like all of these crazy things that we think about, and all of our neuroses and insecurities and doubts and regrets that we've had. Like that's humanity. We're the only ones that get to experience that. That's a gift, and it's a pleasure. That's why this is heaven. Mm-hmm. Not to mention, it's the only place that we know of in the universe that is essentially like an aquarium and a jungle gym, and it's this beautiful, amazing thing with animals running around, and you get to do all these in free will. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's a pretty cool, dope place.
Does this allow for at least the beginnings of I think one of the things you're talking about is just the fear of death, which I think we all carry around, whether or not we're conscious of it or not. But does this begin to translate or transform that fear of death into an appreciation of death? Because it's only death that creates, call it urgency, call it whatever. But absent of death, then it's just the same thing forever.
I think it brings a level of appreciation to everything.
Yeah.
Right? It brings a level of appreciation.
If you can appreciate death, you can appreciate sadness. You can appreciate heartache.
Yeah, exactly. I can appreciate my own insecurities. Yeah. I can appreciate how I messed up in that presentation I was supposed to give, and I felt so much turmoil internally that that's such a crazy thing I got to experience. That doesn't exist anywhere else in the universe. So yes, it's that appreciation of death. It's appreciation of obviously all the beautiful things. We're not negating that. Like, yes, we appreciate the sunsets, and I appreciate learning to surf, and I appreciate, cuddling with my kids, and I appreciate watching football with a fire going on. And I appreciate, the feeling of being successful in my career and all those things. But I can also learn with this perspective. It's not just looking and searching for those things and everything else is a punishment.
Yep.
Those other things then become a thing to appreciate as well, because it's a part of experiencing this thing that we call life, which is reserved, as far as we know, for very, 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 very few of us.
And for a very, very short time.
As far as we know.
As far as we know. What is I think it's a Singer quote that you've mentioned before, the everything that happened to us is for the evolution of our consciousness. I'm not getting that exactly right, but what is that quote again? Eckhart Tolle. Just can you remind me what that was?
I wish it was from a song and I could sing it.
No, I meant it was from Michael Singer.
Oh, Michael Singer.
We can make it a song though.
I can't make it a song.
We'll get somebody to make
it. Oh my God. I have no musical talent.
Okay, Eckhart Tolle. What is the quote again? I just want to make sure I remember.
So it is, life will give you exactly what you need for the evolution of your consciousness. Mm-hmm. And the second part of it is, how do you know that that's what the universe is giving to you? Because it's what you're experiencing right now. Mm-hmm. So that's the same, it fits in this model, right? Which is, whether it's good, bad, indifferent, anything, it's the reason that this is happening for you is so that your consciousness, you can evolve and grow and have these experiences. So yeah, some people have it by having to experience getting fired, right? Or some people have it by having to drive in their car and their radio's not working, right? Some people have it because it's you are positive, you sitting on, your couch, snuggling your 3-year-old child and, them saying for the first time, I love you. Like, oh my God, that's amazing. But it also brings meaning and justification to the really kind of horrific things as well through that quote and through this model, which is the reason that you are having this tragedy is so that your soul can evolve. Mm-hmm. And it might not be, this is kind of like the extension of his quote into my model. It might not be in this lifetime.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like you might have this, you might be born with a mental disorder. And that can be like, well, what the hell is that all about? Well, until you realize that, like, no, you got to experience that aspect of what it means to be a human being. That just brings a lot of power to this existence, regardless of what this existence is. Mm-hmm. It doesn't need to be perfect. You don't need to be a world changer. In fact, it's kind of the opposite. Mm-hmm. It's where the more quotes, the more challenging it is, kind of the more opportunity you have for your consciousness to grow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Existence is the gift. It is a gift. And everything that is part of that.
It's hard to think that though. It's hard to think that through other traditional other models, or if you're an atheist, right? So existence is a gift. Okay. But, I was born, paraplegic and uncommunicative, mm-hmm. and I'm existing in a wheelchair with, somebody has to do every single other thing for me. Yep. Like that's I'm not saying it's impossible. It's a lot more challenging to accept that is a gift without this level of supportive structure around it.
Love that. Thanks, Bodhi. Good idea. Keep letting us know what you want us to talk about. All right, let's jump into our shout out. Our shout out is just when we read a note that either Ben or I or both of us have received, or a podcast review, a YouTube comment, something from one of you. And we always appreciate them, so keep them coming. This is from Dias Dubai 08 on Apple Podcasts, and he's in the United Arab Emirates. He says, or she says, it's crazy to think I started listening to this podcast 5 years ago. During this time, so much has changed, and it feels like my life has also evolved from a CrossFit junkie to now this more holistic approach to life, such as the topics on the podcast. Thanks to you guys, I also made it my mission to spread the word of how taking care of your health will spill over to other aspects of your life. I keep reminding people that you can fill only from an empty cup. I thank you both for guiding me through my own personal development journey. I feel like I have a much different view of the world than I had 5 years ago. Let's keep chasing. I concur. Let us keep chasing.
Oh, so cool.
So if you haven't left us a review or shot us a note or sent us a DM, we do see them all. We do read them all, and we always appreciate them. So thank you in advance. All right, cool down. A couple weeks ago, we wrapped up our 30 Days of Kindness Challenge. I really like this 30 days of challenge type thing. So I'm gonna offer one more or another 30-day challenge. I've talked about something that I've thought about a lot. I've written about a little bit, what I just call the first hour, last hour rule, which is just that in our lives, most of the time, the first hour of the day and the last hour of the day are most hours to do with what we want. People aren't texting us. They're not emailing us at 6 o'clock in the morning, or often, 8, 9 o'clock at night. Nobody's expecting us to do work. Nobody's exterior expectations are almost none. And so therefore they have very high potential for us to use really well. But often we squander those hours, right? We hit the snooze, we stare at Instagram for 30 minutes in bed before we get up and take a long hot shower. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, it's time to go work. Or maybe the kids are up now and now it's time to, get them ready for school or whatever. And at the end of the day, we're tired, we're turn on Netflix, and suddenly 2 episodes later, it's 10:45 or 11. It's like, fine, I guess I'll go to bed now. And so what I posit in this sort of first hour, last hour rule is, it has the most potential and we tend to waste them. And so what I'd like to do just for a 30-day challenge is every day, go into the day with a sense of intention of what are we going to do? And then maybe it's the same across every 30 days. I'm going to just kind of similar to you, like I'm going to do meditation and the yoga and whatever. And that's just going to be my first hour. Or for somebody like me, it's going to be a little bit different. Mostly because kids sleeping affects what my first hour of the day actually looks like. But the point being is, can I spend the first hour and the last hour of every day over the next 30 days with intention toward something I'm trying to build, towards somebody I'm trying to become, towards something that I don't yet have. And I feel like if I only had the time for it, that's what I would do. Well, this is the time for it. It's the first hour and the last hour. Nobody's going to mess with you during those times. And it just requires intention and discipline and a little bit of hard work. And so that's what we're going to do for the next 30 days is first hour, last hour with some intention. Thoughts?
I so love it.
Yeah.
Yep. The awareness, intention, action. Right. It always comes back to that framework.
Absolutely.
So I love what you said is like, what do I want to build? Who do I want to become? That's just a cool, like little, starting point. That is question one. Like that's number one. If I want to write a book, if I want to start my own podcast, if I want to, turn my barn into a garage, right? Whatever it might be, what I want to build, who do I want to become could also be there. And that's, one is not better than the other. Do I want to create, or do I want to, create something physical or create something from a character? And so you could use that as terms of like, do I want to meditate? Do I want to do meal prepping? Do I want to read, journal? Do I want to do yoga? Do I want to spend it intentionally with, as you were saying that, what was going through my mind is I'm very intentional in the morning. Mm-hmm. I know exactly what I want to do. But you're saying like, no one's going to bug you in the last hour. And I was like, no, like I go to bed with my kids. Like we go to bed at 8:15 on a good day, 8:30 on a medium day, and 8:45 on a bad day. And I snuggle with them into bed. So I'm in their bed and I fall asleep in their beds. And I get up. So all the stuff leading up to that is with them. It's brushing teeth together. But what I realized is I'm choosing those things. That is me being I choose to read with them. I choose to spend time with them. So I am being intentional there. I am not doing the Netflix thing. I am not scrolling Instagram. So my default was like, no, I don't have that in the evening. But
yeah, it's already embedded.
It's there.
Who you are and what you do.
Exactly. Yeah. It is there. But I can be better. And I would love to. Heather and I both talked about being more intentional with creating a reading practice at night. That it's amazing how, if you want that to happen, what has to change? Like 5 dominoes ahead. Like it's like it changes from like when dinner is being made at like 3:30 or 4 o'clock it goes back that far. If you want to read at 7:45 at night, you have to work that far ahead of time to make sure that happens. So I will use, first and foremost, I will use it to make sure I am staying intentional with my morning practice, because that's being edged into as I'm trying to get to work earlier. But secondarily, I can still do it as an hour for sure. And secondarily, I'm going to try to add in a practice of reading with my kids every night.
Awesome. I love that. I think I'm a little bit flipped in that I think more of my work needs to be done in the morning. And it's a little bit because of the kids, but it's also a little bit of just my own needing to be a little bit more disciplined. And the evening, I think I've got a good sense of what I want it to be. I've been... I'll just shout out a book I just read. It's called Building a Second Brain by Tiago Forte. Brain, yeah. It's basically the basic concept is like everything we read, everything we ingest, the ideas we have, we tend to just like let them come in and then we don't have anything to do with them. And so this idea of building a second brain is like building an exterior tool where like you read something, you engage with an idea, and it kind of goes into this second brain so that it's not lost and gone forever. But the challenge of it is that it requires maintenance, right? So when I read something, it's got to go into the system for me to ever find it or use it again. And the going into the system has always been the hard part for me. Like, I take notes in books I read, or I make notes for a podcast I listen to or whatever, and then it tends to disappear there. And I'm always like, no, I want to be able to reference it. I want to be able to find it for whatever reason, either in a conversation or I'm writing something. And so this process of building a second brain is really a tool for that. But my point of saying all that is the maintenance, the building of that second brain requires effort and some time and some reflection. And so it's funny, actually, this challenge was going to be a no screens for the first hour and the last hour, which I thought like, okay, yeah, that's good. And then I started doing this and I realized like, oh, and the last hour is actually when I want to get back to the computer so that I can start to organize some of these so I can read through whatever. So I started thinking about it. It's not about the screens. It's about the unintentional use of the screen. Because if you're building a side hustle and all you've got is between 8 and 10 at night, well, I'm not going to tell you, well, don't pick up your screen because, well, too bad.
Your side
right?
hustle better be building bird
That's
houses.
right. That's right. Which probably work too. And so I kind of walked backwards, like, well, what am I actually trying to get at? Because this was just for me. I was just trying to figure out how to get back to using the first and the last hour a little bit more intentionally, a little bit better. And I realized, oh, it has nothing to do with the screens. It has everything to do with the excuse to be passive, the excuse to be like, well, this time doesn't matter. This is like fluff time. No, this could be the most valuable time. And it does whatever that looks like, whatever you are going to do with it, screens or not.
Yeah, I really like that idea of the second brain aspect, and your people that listen to this, but we're constantly absorbing, we're curious, we're learning, we're trying to grow and evolve. And I think that's the trap that myself included, most of us fall into, is we do that, but then it kind of just is like you're sitting on the edge of the ocean and a wave comes up over your feet and then it passes back. You have this like short little moment of this learning, but then 6 months later, that's gone. One of the things that I try to do, and I could certainly do a much better job of it, but it does help a lot. I have a few note categories on my phone: business ideas, mentality, nutrition. And as I'm learning things, I plug the notes into, and it doesn't matter where it comes from. It all goes into that one of those categories. And I have these reference tabs now that built up to be fairly robust about these certain aspects. And it's something that I can go back and I review them a lot of times when I travel. Yep. I hate internet on planes because it's just like it's more frustrating than it's beneficial. So that's where I look at I love that. My photos and I scroll through my notes and I read through them. It's like,
that's not too dissimilar from what building a second brain is, right? You categories, you've organized it. There's obviously things in there that are different, but it's not like that dissimilar from what the basic model of building a second brain is have a place where things go that you can find if you were like, okay, I want to do something with this, or what was that thing about that? And so I think, that's great. If that's what works for you, I think that's fantastic. Yeah. All right. Let us know. Keep us posted how your 30-day first hour, last hour challenge is going. Hit us up on Instagram or send us a note or a text or leave a comment. One thing, we never let people know all these episodes are on YouTube. I just feel like I want to make sure people know that too. If that's a place that that you enjoy getting your podcast, which I think increasingly people are, just search for Chasing Excellence on YouTube and you can find us there too. So leave us a comment there as well. Thank you everybody out there for listening. Thank you for your ratings and your reviews. Thank you for sharing the show with your friends and your neighbors and strangers at the grocery store. We appreciate it. Ben and I will be back for another episode of Chasing Excellence next week.